Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Well, he won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. He's a real athlete, so give him your respect. He's got intensity, integrity, intelligence too. Oh, it's true, it's damn true. So if he ever finds you and you're chanting you suck, then he'll douse you in dairy with his big milk truck. And with one angle slam, he'll lay you out on the floor. So listen up, it's time to go. It's the Kurt Angle Show.
Hey, this is Kurt Angle, and welcome to the Kurt Angle Show. On today's show, we'll be doing Ask Kurt Anything, where you, the fans, can ask me anything that you want. But first, let me introduce to you my co-host, John Alba. How you doing today, John?
Kurt, this is one of the coolest days of my career. It's true. It is damn true. I promise you that, and I'm so grateful that you're letting me hop on and co-host here. We have such a great lineup of talent on our network. Obviously, Conrad, Paul Bromwell always does a great job, but now I get a chance to go one-on-one with the man that's on my pro wrestling Mount Rushmore, and I mean that. It means a lot to me, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And it's a special episode because we are answering all the questions here that all of your great fans want to know. All you had to do was tweet at us at The Angle Pod. Check us out on Instagram at The Angle Pod and just use that hashtag Ask Kurt. And we got so many questions, Kurt. So do you want to just hop right in and get to it?
Let's jump in it, man.
Let's do it. Our first question comes to us from Ringside Rant that wants to know, what is more possible of happening? You becoming a agent coach in a promotion or opening your own training school? Now, if I'm not mistaken, one of these already happened.
Yes, I was an agent for WWE for about a year and a half, and I actually enjoyed it. I don't know if I would start a wrestling school or a training school right now because of my work schedule. I'm busy with the podcast and my supplement company, Physically Fit Nutrition, but maybe someday. But I would say that I would probably end up doing the agent coach before I would the training school.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you were offered a shot to be an NXT coach at one point, right?
Yes. They wanted me to basically, from Zoom, believe it or not, they wanted me to view tapes and talk to the talent about the wrestling, watching their matches with them, going over promo segments. It was a pretty cool offer, but at the time, I just couldn't do it.
Well, hopefully that's something we get to see down the line, because I think there's a lot that people could learn from not just watching your career, but listening to you talk about it. That's why we have the Kurt Angle Show here. And that's why
I'm a man of wisdom, my friend.
Well, speaking of a man of wisdom, one of our top guys, Lopez, says, Kurt, thank you for the coconut oil recommendation on keeping the dome looking good on a recent Top Guys chat. Game changer. When it comes to shaving, do you have any words of wisdom here? Do you use a straight edge razor or something else?
Oh, I have to use a regular razor. If I had a straight razor, I'd cut myself up pretty badly. So I cut myself up pretty badly enough as it is with a regular razor. So I'm going to stick with that.
I have to imagine that it was probably some sort of an adjustment for you after you had the head shaved, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I actually I wasn't shaving my head when I started. I had my family do it, so I didn't even know how to do it. And you know, I like I said before, my motor skills have always been horrible. But I started teaching myself how to do it, and I started shaving my head eventually. But at first, I wasn't doing it. I had people doing it for me.
Very interesting. Let's move on now to Nick. And Nick says there were a few photographs doing the rounds of Kurt in a wheelchair, posing with fans after a few UK events for TNA around 2017, 2018. How banged up was Kurt, and did anyone from TNA potentially want him to stop wrestling due to his physical condition?
Well, TNA always gave me the opportunity to take a break whenever I wanted to. I pretty much had power to do or wrestle when I wanted to and not wrestle when I wanted to. And, you know, at that point in time, I believe that was 2016. It wasn't 2017 because I was in WWE in 2017.
Right.
I think he meant 2016. I had some horrible injuries. And when I was in the UK, I had a blown out hamstring. My knee was messed up. I had to have surgery on that. And I had a groin problem. And I had to be wheeled around in a wheelchair. It was very humbling, you know, knowing that I couldn't really walk or go anywhere. Although I did wrestle. I don't know how. I taped up the hamstring, wrapped it really tightly, and did my thing. And afterward, I was sore as heck. And, you know, I was very humbled by sitting in that wheelchair. I never want to do that again.
I'm sure Mrs. Angle was thrilled with the idea that you were in a wheelchair and then going and wrestling every night.
Yeah, she was pretty pissed off.
Listen, I've gotten a chance to know Mrs. Angle a little bit, and she is not the type of person that you want to be on the wrong side of. That is.
You're exactly right, my friend. But I love her to death.
She's the best. Giovanna, shout out to you. Let's move on to Lindsay. What was supposed to be the reason for your storyline with Sharmell and Booker T? It seems so out of place and unusual for your character. Were you hesitant about it before agreeing to go along with it? Now, I know on past episodes of the Kurt Angle Show, you have talked about this, and you did say that you weren't totally comfortable with this. So where did the idea come from, and how did it evolve?
I have no idea where the idea came from. I think that Vince McMahon, you know, Vince is kind of a ribber. You know, he'll do stuff to mess with you a little bit and to kind of, you know, shove it in your face. And I think that he thought I had this fetish for black women.
Really?
I like all women, white, black, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. My wife is half Hispanic, half Italian. And, you know, so I think Vince thought I had this fetish for black women, and he thought it'd be a funny program. And I was not comfortable by any means. I had so much respect for Booker T and Sharmell to do that and pretend I was stalking his wife. It was the worst angle I've ever done, worst storyline I've ever done. I did it anyway because I've always been a team player, but I was not comfortable doing it.
I feel like not a lot of people give the Booker T Sharmell pairing the credit that they deserve. What were your thoughts on them as a team together?
Oh, they were incredible. Very entertaining. Sharmell never missed a spot. She was on all the time. She had great timing. Booker T is one of the best wrestlers I've ever gotten in the ring with. Those two together were unstoppable.
Well, speaking of best wrestlers you've ever been in the ring with, let's talk Shinsuke Nakamura. Wrestling historian asks, what did you think of Shinsuke Nakamura after working with him? And Kurt, that was February 17, 2008. Shinsuke Nakamura defeated you to unify the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. I have to imagine Nakamura in his prime, that had to be a career highlight for you.
Oh, it was. And Nakamura was pretty young at the time, and he was very talented. We had a great match, great chemistry together. First time we ever worked, first time we ever touched. And I knew he had a huge future. I knew if he came over here and entered the WWE, he would end up being a big star. And he did. He did that.
Do you think he's reached the potential that he could with the American audience? Because I've seen a lot of criticism about that in his handling. He had the big main event WrestleMania match at your return WrestleMania. Any thoughts on that?
He's gotten opportunities, but I don't think they follow through entirely. I think that he should be on another level. He's not just a great wrestler. He's entertaining. You know, come on, the way he is, his charisma is off the charts. And I think someone like that should be a huge superstar for the company.
You're obviously known for your shooting style, but he's the king of strong style. Did you enjoy working that really physical style of pro wrestling with him?
Yeah, I prefer that. That's why I went over to Japan. I worked over there for a couple of years and had a lot of fun doing it. And the strong style is incredible. That's what I like doing, and that's what I did.
And it was awesome stuff. And you should check out a lot of Kurt's New Japan stuff. I really found all that very entertaining, and it allowed you to kind of show a different side of you too, which it's amazing. Your career is just kind of part of that. You're a serial reinventor while staying within your own box. And I think that's really, really cool. So go check that stuff out if you haven't had a chance to yet. Let's move on to Dave McClay. Who does Kurt think are the all-time greatest women's wrestlers?
All time. Wow. You have to go back in the past. From what I saw, Trish Stratus, Lita, Mickie James, Gail Kim. Recently today, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch. These girls are prime. I mean, they're actually better than a lot of the guys. They really are. I think Charlotte Flair might be one of the absolute best wrestlers in the whole entire world, male or female. That's how good she is. And these girls really stepped up. But I would say the best ever from today is the girls I mentioned, and the ones I mentioned from earlier in my career. That was in the past.
I want to build off of that, though, because you mentioned how great those ones in the past were. We also know how they were showcased. They were in bra and panties matches, and they were objectified quite often. If those women had been given the time that today's women are and the investment that the Bianca Belairs and the Charlotte Flairs are, who do you think would have been a huge breakout star?
Well, I think that fans and the company really started to take Trish Stratus very seriously.
Sure.
She started having some time, getting time and having great matches. And Lita was always with the Hardys, but when she spawned off to a singles career, she did extremely well too. But I would say those two are the two best.
What are your thoughts on Molly Holly? She's someone who just joined the company as a producer backstage.
Molly was great. I just don't think she reached her potential, her level that she should have. I don't blame that on her. I think that was the company's fault. I do know that, her being the squeaky clean Molly Holly might have affected her, might have hurt her character, her wrestling style. But I thought she was awesome. I would put her up there too.
Great talent and a great person that all those performers in WWE are learning from right now. No doubt about that. And a Hall of Famer as well. One of your co-teammates there. So checking out Tony's question here, Tony Flowers. Kurt, do you think your lack of pro wrestling fandom was beneficial to you, or was it a hindrance? You mentioned you watched a lot of old wrestling when you joined WWE. Did this help you in any tangible way, like promos or psychology? I think that's an awesome question.
It is an awesome question. I didn't know anything about pro wrestling when I joined. As a matter of fact, in 1996, I had no clue. I thought that the business was about fighting for yourself, politicking for yourself, and you should never lose. You should always win. I didn't understand about putting each other over, and so I had to learn that, and I also had to learn the psychology. Watching matches, seeing how they structured them. Watching Bret Hart wrestle, Kurt Hennig, Macho Man Randy Savage. These were matches that I watched religiously because I had a lot of catching up to do. When I started in 1998, I never watched pro wrestling. I wasn't a fan. I was told not to watch it because I was an amateur wrestler. So it was a very big adjustment. But I'm a student of the game. When I get into something and I focus on it, I do extremely well at that. I excel. And I knew if I studied this properly, I would do really well too. So I put my heart and soul into it and studied tapes and got in the ring and, worked on my technique and on my psychology. The only thing I didn't work on, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it, are the promos. No one ever really taught me how to do it. I didn't teach myself. I was basically thrown in the fire when I started. As far as cutting promos and doing pre-tapes, I didn't know how I would do. I thought that Vince McMahon at the beginning was going to utilize me as a wrestler only, maybe be on Main Event every week instead of Raw or SmackDown. I didn't know. I kept my limit. I kept my expectations low because back then they didn't have a lot of training camps. I went to the Dory Funk Dojo 3 times for 5 days each, and that was about it. Now they have NXT. These guys are getting the best of the training and trainers, people that are teaching them every aspect of sports entertainment. I didn't have that luxury, so I had to learn on the fly.
You said a lot of great things there, and to borrow one of my brethren's quotes, I want to unpack that a little bit. So you said that promo work was not something that was part of your game at all when you came in. And I think if you watch your career unfold, that's evident that you slowly learned it on the fly. Was there anyone that it was recommended you go out and watch and try to learn from their promo style at all?
Well, I started watching the top guys, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, trying to parlay my style more toward theirs. Even though my character was a lot different than theirs, I wanted to make sure my promo style was, identical to theirs. So, I just watched the best of the best and learned from them.
I get it. It's a wrestling podcast, but he's saving us money on our mortgage. Do you really trust this process? The reviews don't lie. 5-star review after 5-star review. We make it fast, we make it easy, and it's no cost or obligation. Give us a shot to earn your business. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did, especially if you like keeping more of your own money. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket, so what are you waiting for? Hurry to SaveWithConrad.com.
So you said that you had never watched anything because you were explicitly told don't watch it. Is there anyone backstage in particular that you can think of that said, hey, Kurt, you should go watch Owen Hart matches. You should go watch Bret Hart. You should go watch Randy Savage.
Oh, yeah. Jerry Briscoe, Pat Patterson, Johnny Laurinaitis. They all told me, get to work, start studying and you're going to educate yourself. And, they gave me a lot of advice too. So I couldn't complain about that. Those guys were always there for me, and they did a tremendous job of teaching me.
It's really cool that we got this question in the batch because I've actually thought about it a lot, and I work on the independent scene, and I was talking about this with a wrestler that I've worked with, a women's wrestler who just cracked the PWI Top 150, and she did not start watching wrestling until 2018 when she happened to be watching a WrestleMania match that involved Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, Ronda Rousey, and Kurt Angle. And that was her first match that she ever watched. And now she's one of the top wrestlers on the independent scene. Do you feel that it's beneficial to come in with a cold slate at all? Or do you think it is required that you should have some background knowledge at this point?
I really think you need background knowledge. I think growing up as a fan gives you a head start. Not watching it or not knowing anything about it, it's going to take you a little bit more time to adjust. But some people just have it and some people don't have it. And I think that this young lady has it and I had it, and we were very fortunate.
She's great. And much like your younger self, it's just taking it to water. And I think that's really, really cool. Let's move on now to top guy, Mike Whitaker. Kurt, my 11-year-old is trying out for the middle school wrestling team. Do you have any pointers I can tell him? He's a smaller sized kid. P.S. At first, he did think of WWE wrestling. Then I showed him your match from the Olympics, and now he's all in.
I would say be patient. If he's starting out in junior high, 7th grade or 6th grade or whatever, for the most part, he's behind the 8 ball. A lot of these kids start in elementary school and they get more experience. But I started in middle school too, and I took my lumps, but I never gave up. And I continued to train and I continued to work hard and I continued to compete in matches. And eventually I started winning. And then it became in where I was never losing anymore. So what I'm saying is he needs to be very patient because he's going to take his lumps. and it's a brutal sport. It's really tough, and you know, wrestling and losing, it's a big adjustment because you lose confidence when you lose. And the thing is, I didn't do that when I got beat. I wanted to figure out every way possible of how, if I wrestled this kid again, how I would beat him. So I was always thinking of different ways to improve myself so that when I wrestled the person again, I would end up beating them. You know, a good game plan, you know, tactics, working on technique. So you just have to be patient. He needs to be patient and know he's going to take his lumps, and eventually the winning will start occurring.
Do you find that a lot of young kids hear wrestling and they think it's WWE, but then they're in for a little bit of a shock when they get in the midst of it?
Yeah. But you know what? A lot of them, even though they're a little bit disappointed at first, they actually think that amateur wrestling is pretty cool. So, you know, I do agree to a certain extent that, you know, kids are going to, you know, think WWE, and when they get to amateur wrestling, they're going to be disappointed, you know. But for the most part, most kids really like the physicality of amateur wrestling. So they think it's pretty cool. And, you know, when you're an amateur wrestler, you're a badass. And, you know that because anybody that gets into wrestling knows it's the toughest sport in the world.
I wish I heard that advice when I was in middle school, because I did one day of amateur wrestling and that was it. So
that was it. No more.
I wish I heard the Kurt Angle advice at that point. I was too busy watching him on TV and wanting to beat him instead. So that was that. Kenny Holmes asked, was there a particular match or point in your career that you can remember when you realized that you were one of the greatest to ever jump into the ring?
That's tough. You know what? I actually realized that early on in my career. I'd say 2.5 years into it. I knew that I was special. I knew that I caught on very quickly. And I knew by 2002, I was one of the best wrestlers in the world. It was very evident to see that. And it was evident where the company was pushing me. And I knew that I was one of the very top guys. And, you know, at one point I was the top guy for a little bit of time before John Cena took over. And it was really cool. I really enjoyed being a part of that.
Can you think of one match in particular that was wow, I'm really good at what I do?
Let me see. I would say 2003 Royal Rumble, Chris Benoit. The match was incredible. The false finishes were amazing. The submission trade-offs were all there. It had the ingredients of one of the greatest matches of all time. And we went over 30 minutes. So it was, you know, we put in the time as well. And the match was exciting as hell.
I would also argue that match elevated Chris Benoit to a totally different level in WWE and showed people that he could be one of the top guys as well. So
he deserved to be.
Yeah. Totally with you on that one. Bryant wants to know, was there ever any superstar that you pushed for TNA to hire while you were there? Now, obviously there are contractual obligations that people need to fulfill and you can't tamper with, but was there anyone that you went to management and said, hey, you should go take a look at this person?
No, I never recruited for WWE. I never tried to scout for them. I didn't think it was right. If anybody came to me for advice, I would give it to them. But if someone, you know, maybe someone might have called me and said, hey, what do you think of TNA? I would tell them that I loved it. You know, I enjoyed being in the company, but I never really recruited anybody or tried to steal someone from another company.
So with that said, who is someone from that era of WWE who you feel would have been a great fit for TNA?
Gosh, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, you know, those guys, they would have carried the company on their backs, and they would have done extremely well. They've always done well, whether they were in WCW or WWE, didn't matter. I mean, AEW now, look at Chris Jericho. He's still going.
Amazing.
As good as he's ever been. It's just unbelievable. But I think those two guys would have been really good for TNA.
I totally agree with that. I think Chris Jericho would have been hilarious in the main event Mafia,
Oh,
adding
yeah.
a little bit of a flair to it. And that actually is a perfect segue for us because our next question comes from Michael McClanahan, who says, what are Kurt's favorite memories of the main event Mafia storyline in 2008, 2009? And what were some of his favorite moments from their feud with the TNA frontline?
Well, we had a great program with the front line, Samoa Joe and AJ. That was a lot of fun to do. But the cool thing about the main event Mafia was we had 5 guys that were really special, and bringing them all together and making this clan, this new faction, was one of the best things I ever did. And I didn't ask to be the godfather of the group. They actually decided for me to do that. The guys voted and said, let's make Kurt the godfather because he's the workhorse of the company. So they knew that I worked my, I had most of the matches, and I was the guy I was the top guy in the company that was carrying the company. So that was really cool that they did that. But these guys were so good and they were so experienced, and I loved being with them. They were entertaining, they were funny. We would get really serious at times, but we were having a blast doing this. This is one of the best factions in the history of professional wrestling. Of course, it's not going to get the notoriety that other ones have done, like the Shield or, DX, because it wasn't in WWE. It was in TNA. So unfortunately, we'll never get that credit, but we deserve it.
Is there ever any hesitance when someone in creative comes to you and says, hey, we want you to kind of reinvent and do something different here? Or do you embrace opportunities like that?
I embrace opportunities like that. I want to do something different. I want to change my character and keep it fresh and new. So I've always been on board with that.
Is there anybody you can think of that would have fit really well in the main event Mafia that didn't have an opportunity to mix and mingle with them?
Oh, that's tough. You know what? The thing is, I think we had all the guys that were experienced, that had a bunch of years of wrestling behind them. I can't think of anybody else that had the quote unquote 20 plus years.
Right.
I was the only one in the group that wasn't 20 plus years at the time.
That's crazy.
All the other guys were
so crazy,
heavily experienced. And that's what the main event Mafia was all about, was to have the guys that already had the huge success, the very top guys in every company, they come together and make a faction. So it was a very special group.
And they took a shoot vote to say, hey, we want you to be the forefront of this thing.
Yeah, which was really cool. I didn't expect that, but that was they decided, to vote Kurt Angle in as the Godfather.
That's so awesome. And I think that speaks a lot to the level of respect that you commanded during that time, especially you were the one who made that jump to TNA. You took that bet on yourself. And I think that's really cool that they were able to pay that forward to you.
It was cool, definitely.
The 90s Wrestling Podcast says, Kurt, do you have any thoughts on Bron Breakker from NXT? And is he someone you could see WWE being built around?
Yeah, Bron is a talented individual. I love his style. He's very physical. I think that the company could do a lot of good with him. I don't know if he's the guy that you want to build the company around, but I do believe that he should be one of the very top guys eventually. He's that talented. I think that he could be something very special if they use him right.
I know I would get hundreds of tweets if I did not ask this question, Kurt. So what do you think of the name Bron Breakker and not leaning into the Steiner heritage?
You know what? The kid can decide for himself what he wants to call himself. I don't really, I wouldn't take offense to it. So I don't think it's a problem.
Was it ever pitched to you that you'd go under a different name in WWE at all? Or was it always going to be Kurt Angle?
It was always going to be Kurt Angle because Vince McMahon felt that, let's use the Olympic gold medal and what Kurt has truly accomplished, and let's make a character out of him. And he did, man. He ran with that character, and he not only made me legitimate, he made me very funny and entertaining, kind of a dork, but I like doing it, and it was a lot of fun. I had a blast.
I think it's fun to think about an alternate timeline where there's an Angle Curtis out there as the main eventer, the Olympic gold medalist instead of Kurt Angle. So it's just a little what if. Michael Gavin Ali says, Kurt, I know you share your issues with addiction. When was the point it got worse? And did you know that you needed help? And how did it lead to you becoming a better person today?
Well, it got worse when I switched from the painkillers to alcohol. And, I did what an addict always does. They transfer from one drug to another. They say they're better because they're not taking that drug anymore, but they went on to another drug. And I made some horrible decisions. I had 4 DUIs in 5 years. The last DUI I got, my wife, I called her from the jail and I said, I'm in jail again. I got hit for DUI. And she said, listen, I can't do this anymore. You either have to go to rehab or I'm leaving you. And it was like, whoa, this is pretty serious. I can't be in denial anymore. And I faced myself and looked myself in the mirror and said, okay, this is time. You need to not only do this for yourself, but do it for your family. You're ruining your life. You're ruining your career. You're ruining your reputation. It's time to make a change. And I believe it was in 2013 in August that I went to rehab, and I've been clean ever since.
Well, we're all very grateful for that. And you should be very proud of that as well. And I think when you talk about stuff like addiction or mental health or whatever it may be, people at first may be in denial about it. From your experiences, what would you give as a piece of advice to people who are struggling to confront stuff like that?
Well, I think if they're not able to go to their families and talk about it, they need to find somebody to talk about it, whether it be someone that's in the addiction business or, a doctor or someone or a sponsor, an addict that has recovered. They need to get advice. They need to talk to people. The only way that you're going to change your habit is by admitting that you have an addiction and that you want to get help. And if you don't do that, you're never going to get better. And eventually you're going to die. That's what happens to everybody and anybody that continues on with their addiction. They end up overdosing. So you have to make that decision. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm an addict. I admit it. I need help.
I think that's a great piece of advice. And it also helps when you have a strong Latina Italian in your household who's ready to lay down the law for you. So once again, Mrs. Angle coming through big.
She's a badass.
Shout out to Giovanna there. Jam Wagner says, Kurt, any stories from Wrestlers Court, either involving you or another wrestler? And also, did TNA have a Wrestlers Court like in WWE?
And TNA did not have a Wrestlers Court. WWE did. And I remember there was one case, if you want to call it that.
Let's hear it.
It was the writer Brian Gewirtz. He was accused from the prosecuting attorney, John Bradshaw Layfield. He was accused of favoring certain talent to write for them. That talent being me, Jericho, The Rock, and Edge and Christian. And the judge was Undertaker. And Brian had to go to court, and facing Bradshaw, you're not going to win. So Brian had to defend himself, and Bradshaw was the prosecuting attorney. And what happened was, a lot of the wrestlers got to speak their minds about Brian not writing for them. But listen, Brian was told who to write for. It wasn't like that, he got to pick and choose. But he did find chemistry with certain people. And when he did that, he would put a little more time and effort into those people that he had chemistry with. So I understand Brian, but I also understand the boys being upset, because Brian did write specifically for Rock, me, Jericho, and Edge and Christian, I think Hurricane Helms. And so I understand why they did what they did, but the end of the court, the end of the hearing, Brian had to buy 5 cases of beer for the wrestlers. So at least they didn't do anything physical to him. They only made him buy beer.
Well, shout out to Brian, who's working side by side with Dwayne Johnson these days. I think maybe there might have been a little bias there, if that gives any indication. Was Brian one of the smarter creative minds that you've ever had a chance to work with, especially in WWE?
Him and Vince Russo are the two best minds I've ever been a part of in the business. I think Brian was the reason why he was so good is he was a writer. He went to college to write, Syracuse University, and he was a wrestling fan his whole entire life. And being a writer and a wrestling fan, that's a perfect mix to be a writer for WWE. And he was extremely talented. He came up with some of the most entertaining, funniest segments I've ever been a part of. The way he wrote for The Rock and Jericho and myself and Edge and Christian, we were the most entertaining guys on the show, and rightfully so, because Brian was writing for us.
Can you give us an example of one famous Kurt Angle segment that Brian wrote?
Sexy Kurt.
There it is. There it is.
Sexy Kurt. He wrote the milk segment.
Milkomania.
His idea, Milkomania, with the milk truck. Brian was really talented. All the promos I did, it was all Brian's writing. None of the ideas were mine. He strictly wrote everything out for me, and I didn't have to do any work. No studying or writing stuff down. Brian did it for me, and he presented it to me. I would read it, and I would go display it, and what would you call that? I would perform it.
Mm-hmm.
So Brian was so talented, though. I had so much fun working with that kid.
So what I'm hearing is he was guilty as hell in Wrestler's Court. That's
yeah, he might have. I mean, but you have to understand, each writer is only going to have 5 or 6 guys to write for.
Of course.
And we had like 10 or 12 writers. So, Brian, he might have picked his favorites, but he was the top writer in the company. So rightfully so, he could do that.
Maybe JBL was just trying to pad his court record with that one. Seems like a pretty easy case.
Yeah, JBL can be a son of a bitch at times.
Doubt Barisha says, what did you think of Squid Game?
Okay, I don't understand this.
Okay.
People are desperate for money because they're in debt and they're willing to die for it. Is this a work or a shoot? To my knowledge, it was a work and not a shoot. Okay. That would be, first of all, wouldn't it be a liability if they actually filmed that and people?
Yes. I'm pretty sure it's a scripted drama. And I
haven't watched it. I just saw some of the previews and it was like, okay, I don't know if this is work or a shoot, but this is crazy if it's a shoot.
This past week's episode of Being the Elite actually was a 25-minute long spoof of Squid Game. So there's
I heard it's #1 on Netflix, right?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I have watched one episode of it. I don't know if it's my cup of tea, but if you're into those like very intense thrillers where you're just on your seat, the edge of your seat the entire time, you're going to be feeling that. So
right.
If that's what floats your boat, definitely go check it out. Dave says, I was at your Hall of Fame induction and it was a blast and such an awesome moment to celebrate your career. How did it feel to look back at your career and how much fun was it to incorporate some of those special moments into your induction? You, of course, did the double milk clap and doused yourself in it, that nice tuxedo. Maybe you had to go to the dry cleaner an extra day. What was that moment like for you, Kurt?
It was so much fun. I got to relive my past, doing the milk segment with 2 half gallons of milk and throwing them back and, the cowboy hat, also singing Sexy Kurt. The crazy thing is 5 minutes before my speech, the writers came into my green room and they said, hey, we need you to be very entertaining tonight. I'm like, well, I already have my speech ready. They're like, well, is there anything entertaining in it? I said, well, it's a bunch of thank yous. They're like, no, you got to do some entertaining. I said, what do you want me to do? They said, if you need anything, tell us and we'll get it for you. I said, I'm on in 5 minutes. He said, we'll get it for you before 5 minutes is up. I said, well, get me 2 quarts of milk and a cowboy hat. And they said, that's all you need? I said, yes. So I did the Hall of Fame speech, and I added, the cowboy hat in, and sang "Sexy Kurt," and then drank the milk at the end. And the segment, I was really happy with the turnout of my Hall of Fame speech. If those writers didn't come in and tell me that 5 minutes before, my speech wouldn't have been entertaining at all. So it was a bunch of just, I want to thank you, and I want to thank this guy and this woman, and that's all it was a bunch of thank yous.
They just happened to have quarts of milk and this tiny cowboy hat all just laying around
at the arena. Yeah. I don't know how. 5 minutes before I went out there, but they got it.
I think they were ribbing you, Kurt. I think it was one last rib. They wanted to put you on the spot there.
They did. If they were trying to rib me, they did it right.
Did Vince McMahon say anything to you after the speech?
He hugged me and said it was awesome. He said it's one of the most entertaining speeches he's ever heard. And that made me feel really good, because there have been a lot of good Hall of Fame speeches.
And he had no problem getting all that milk on himself, huh?
No, I got most of it,
okay.
But because I drank it. But yeah, when I hugged Vince, yeah, but we hugged with our asses out. It was more so he didn't get too much milk on him.
That sounds like a t-shirt right there. We hugged with our asses out. I have to check that out. Box of Gimmicks. Justin 25 says, did you enjoy TNA's 6-sided ring, and how much more difficult was it to work in rather than the standard square you were used to in WWE?
Well, a 6-sided ring is faster paced. It's a smaller ring. There are 6 sides. It's probably 2 to 3 feet smaller than the WWE ring. So when you're coming off the ropes, you have 1 step before you connect with your opponent. In the WWE ring, you have 2 or 3 steps before you connect. So the match is a lot quicker. Like, you have to react a lot faster. Other than that, there's not much of a difference.
Now, I have heard this from some performers about the 6-sided ring. Is it harder to get your footing when you're on the top rope because they're spread out a little more rather than a direct 90-degree angle like a 4-sided ring?
Yeah, it is a lot harder because it's a wider angle, and you need to place your feet. And especially if you're so used to doing it in a WWE ring, and then you go to the 6-sided ring, it's a huge adjustment. And but it's not that difficult. I mean, it's a little bit of an adjustment. It's not a big deal. I have never seen anybody actually slip off the top rope on the 6-sided ring. So obviously it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Stevie Green says, Oakmont, PA loves our Olympic hero. My question for my hero is, if you were booking WWE today, who would your champions be, and what would be your WrestleMania main event? Thank you for all your honesty, and keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you. My 2 champions are the 2 best in the company, Roman Reigns and Randy Orton. But WrestleMania main event, a new one I would love to see would be AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. I think that match would be incredible. I would love to see that at WrestleMania as a main event. Both of those guys are unbelievable in the ring.
I don't think anyone would disagree with you on that front. What are your thoughts on the 2-night WrestleMania, Kurt?
The 2-night WrestleMania?
They're splitting. So the show was as
yeah. You mean the back-to-back WrestleMania?
How they have split it up over the course of 2 nights now, rather than one 7-hour extravaganza.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. WrestleMania has been a lot more difficult to watch when it's 7 hours. They started really overbooking WrestleMania to the point where, when you go 5, 6, 7 hours, people's attention spans can't keep up that well. I mean, that's really difficult. So I think them splitting it in half might have been a good idea. I could be wrong, but I think that, splitting it in half and going 3 hours each night might be a better idea than going 6 or 7 in one night.
Well, they've done it the last 2 years, and we'll see how they do it in Dallas as well. RMD says, Kurt, who arranged your trip to Afghanistan in 2003? I was there for that. And how great was it to be with Robin Williams?
Oh, by the way, thank you for serving, my friend. The USO put it together. General Myers, the joint chief of staff at the time, was there. We were on Air Force Two. We flew around in Air Force Two, which was the vice president's plane, which was totally awesome. And being with Robin Williams, and there was also Leanne Tweeden from the Best Damn Sports Show, and Mike Wallace, the NASCAR race car driver. We were all together on this plane. And the crazy thing is, Robin Williams would not shut up. He was so funny. He cracked jokes the whole time. It got so bad that at one point he went to the bathroom, and when he came back, I was faking like I was sleeping because I was tired of hearing him cracking jokes. He just goes on and on and on, just forever. And he never stops. It's just everything is a joke to him. It was, but unfortunately, we lost Robin Williams a few years ago. Unfortunately, that really sucked because he was an incredible performer.
Legend.
And, he really is an actor, comedian. He had it all, and it's a very sad story to see him pass away.
I can't even imagine how difficult some of those trips overseas are in terms of travel, especially for someone that has had your injury history. So hopefully to lighten that up, it helped a little bit.
You know what? It did. Robin Williams was great. But the cool thing was going over there for the troops, to go over there and to meet all of them, to know that they're, fighting for our freedom, protecting our country, doing what they had to do in Afghanistan and Iraq. It was really cool to go over there and represent them and say thank you to them. I want to thank every soldier that's ever served in the armed forces. I want to thank you for your service. I love you guys.
100% echo those sentiments as well, Kurt. Dan Potts, was it ever pitched to you to do anything with Otis and Chad Gable? Now they are doing their Alpha Academy stuff. It's been pretty entertaining, shoot style kind of wrestling stable they got going on there. Anything ever thrown your way?
I wouldn't mind doing it. And not only are they great amateur wrestlers, they're entertaining too, especially Otis. I think I might have been able to be a part of that, but I think they started that after I left the company. So there wasn't a possibility of me coming back and managing them. The WWE did offer me to manage Matt Riddle, and I didn't take it at the time because I had some other commitments. And but Otis and Chad Gable, that would have been awesome. Managing them, we would have had a lot of fun doing those segments.
Again, I'd get a ton of tweets if I didn't ask this. Was there ever any interest on your end of coming in and managing or working with American Alpha, Jason Jordan and Chad Gable?
Yeah, I wanted to do that. I'm not sure why Vince didn't decide to do that. Instead, he made Jason Jordan my son. And Chad Gable had no relationship to me whatsoever. I would have probably done the opposite, but I also think that those guys would have been the new Team Angle, and it would have been a really good run. I'm not sure why Vince didn't want to do it. It's actually very disappointing because the Team Angle didn't even get to the level that we could have. Team Angle only survived for like 8 months. It wasn't a long period for that faction. So to reignite it with Chad Gable and Otis or Jason Jordan would have been incredible. I think that we could have done that for a good 3 or 4 years and had a great run.
And then on top of that, they had Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin teaming together for a period of time, which seems like a natural pairing with you.
Yes, especially Shelton. He was part of Team Angle. So I would have loved to have all of them as part of my faction. That would have been incredible. And we could have been a Survivor Series team.
You're getting me angry here, Kurt. Getting hot about
I'm
this.
booking from the couch.
I'm getting hot about this. It could have been so great because you're absolutely right in every way there. But you know what? You got a son out of it. So that's all that matters.
Yes, I did.
Blood is thicker than water, Kurt. That's all that matters.
You're absolutely right. That's my son, Jason Jordan. I'm so proud of him.
Hey, he's doing a great job right now as a producer backstage. So
He is.
kudos to Jason Jordan here. Alex Commentaries asks, what was your most dangerous moonsault that you ever did in a steel cage match?
Oh, man, they were all dangerous. But I did one in TNA. The TNA cage was about 2 feet higher than the WWE cage. The first time I did a moonsault off the cage was against Chris Benoit in WWE, and I actually had to have knee surgery because of it.
Wow.
But I ended up the most dangerous one I did was when I moonsaulted on top of Ken Anderson in TNA, and the cage was about 2 feet higher than the WWE cage. And when I came down, I landed right on his face. My hip landed right on his face. I almost broke his nose. But I jammed my toes into the ring from that. And my toes were never the same. They're still not the same. I got some major arthritis in my toes from that moonsault. It was very dangerous.
I believe Cody Rhodes broke part of his foot doing the moonsault off the cage on Wardlow back on Dynamite as well a couple years ago. And
I wouldn't doubt it.
There's no way to really practice that, right?
No, you can't practice. You could put a pad down, but the pad's not going to help much. Might as well just do it. That's what I did. The first time I did it, I got up there and I said, I can do it. And I never practiced it. I just did it. The first time I did it was the first time with Chris Benoit. And Stone Cold Steve Austin was actually watching it from the announce table. I remember that. And the match was incredible. The crazy thing about that match was we're doing so much crazy stuff that Austin was like, I ain't working with these two assholes ever. Like, he was like, these guys are crazy. We were trying to impress him because we wanted to work with him. And he was like, these guys are freaking nuts. I'm not working with these guys. So it actually backfired on us.
Coming from the king of laying it in stiff kid. That's pretty funny to hear. And we got a couple from John Moran here. First, other than testing and the wellness programs, are there any other drug prevention methods in the wrestling industry, like mentors in the locker room to help the younger people?
No, there aren't. But, there are some of the agents that can give advice, but we don't talk about it much in the locker room. The good thing is the WWE, especially the WWE, has a great wellness policy, a great drug program. I mean, you're not allowed to take anything anymore. They really protect these guys, and rightfully so. That's how it should have been. Back in the 90s and the early 2000s. Unfortunately, it wasn't until about around 2005 or 6. But the wellness policy is incredible, and they're doing a really good job of keeping the guys off drugs.
And he asked, how would 1996 Kurt have handled the creative ideas given to 1999 Kurt? Now, you said earlier, and you've told this story many times, that you marched into Bruce Pritchard's office. You said, I can't lose. I can never be booked to lose. And I imagine that Kurt changed a lot. So how would he have handled some of the ideas given to you upon your debut?
I probably would have refused all of them. I didn't understand the business. I didn't understand about putting each other over, about elevating each other, making it a team effort that you can create all these superstars and make them all rise to the top. I thought it was every man for themselves, and I wasn't willing to do anything crazy. The crazy thing is I did a lot of crazy stuff because I started to get it. I started watching it in 1998 and understanding it. Like in 1996, I went to ECW one night and they did this crucifixion and I got offended. And, 3 years later, WWE did the same thing with Undertaker and Austin. And I wasn't so offended anymore because I understood the business. So that's a good comparison.
I feel like if ECW is your first real exposure to pro wrestling, that's kind of baptism by fire, as is.
It definitely is. It's freaking crazy. Those guys are nuts.
It's a little much, but you know what? You worked with some of the very best that ever came out of ECW, and I love the hell out of all those matches. And our last question comes to us from @JohnAlba. And Kurt, I was a sportscaster for years, and I got this gold here, and I know you were a sportscaster.
Oh, nice.
I know you were a sportscaster, and
yes, for a year.
You didn't get a chance to snag one of these Emmys. So John Alba wants to know, would you ever consider exchanging one of your Olympic golds for an Emmy award?
Hell no.
Okay.
With an explanation point.
I just had to.
I will tell you this. Sportscasting is a lot harder than people could ever imagine.
Yes, it is.
It is freaking crazy. And when I did it, I didn't have any proper training. It was a startup station. And, I went in, rehearsed 2 nights for an hour each. And the first night on the air, when I went live, I walked in the studio and all my scripts, I ran to the producer and all my scripts went in the air. I think you probably heard the story. And he said, pick them up. I said, well, what am I going to do with them? He said, just read the teleprompter. So we're starting and it says time for the angle on sports. That's what they called it. And when I popped up on the camera, the prompt teleprompter went black. So there were no words to read. And I'm just sitting there looking at the camera and they're like, say something, Kurt. Say anything, Kurt. I'm like, Duquesne basketball had a game today. Let's go to the highlights. And I didn't know any of these players' names. I'm like, there's number 62 with the layup. And it was the longest 8 minutes of my life. And when I got done, the newscaster and the weather girl, the scripts were everywhere. We were trying to get them together and get them in order. And, every time we went to a different sport, I picked the wrong sport because I didn't have the scripts in front of me. So we started with basketball, then we went to baseball, and it was actually golf. So I kept messing up through the whole 8 minutes. And, but we got through it. And my weekday sports anchor came to me and said, Kurt, I've been doing this 18 years. That never happened to me once. I was like, well, thank you. Because first time I go on the air, it's the first thing that happens to me. Just my luck.
Let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com.
Well, my third day on air in my career, I had to, you went right to the big leagues. I had to go to the Indies, Bangor, Maine. I was at the ABC and Fox affiliate, and my third day on air, the power went out. And those stories that you just said, they happen all around the country. So I live through that. I feel that secondhand embarrassment, and people don't understand that you've got someone talking in your ear the whole time. It is.
And you have to read the cameras, make sure which light's on. You have to stare at that camera, and you have people talking to you, telling you what to say, what to do. It's mayhem. It really is. I hated it. I absolutely despised it. I didn't want to do it anymore. I spent a year and I said, I'm done. And you know what? They probably would have fired me before I quit, but I wanted to shove it in their face and say, you know what? I'm quitting. You're not firing me. So, it just, I wish that I would have prepared better for it. I wish that, I would have taken a class or went to school, or even if they would have, invited me in a month early and had me,
train a little bit. Yeah.
Train a little bit for a month or so. That would have been awesome. But I didn't have that luxury.
Well, I'll tell you this, Kurt, if I had not had my sportscasting career, I would not be sitting down talking on the Kurt Angle show.
You are right.
with the Olympic hero himself, Kurt Angle. And I'm so grateful that we had a chance here to answer some of these great questions. Again, in the future, when we do these Ask Kurt episodes, all you got to do is hashtag Ask Kurt at the Angle Pod, and we'll pull those questions in, and you get a chance to talk to one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time. And I think that's pretty cool. And next week, I am so jealous if I don't get a chance to host this episode, Kurt, because we are talking Survivor Series 2001, the 10-man Survivor Series winner takes all match. It ended one of the most infamous angles in pro wrestling history, the invasion. You are an influential part of that match. And quite frankly, Kurt, it is one of my favorite WWE main events ever. How looking forward are you to talking about this big time main event?
Well, this main event put me in a different light.
Yes, it did.
Another level. And it was a big break for me in my career. This is what really made me. And this match at Survivor Series, the whole invasion angle, me being the guy that saved the company, even though I ended up turning heel the next day. It was really cool to be a part of that, and to know that I was going to be elevated into a status that is in the very, very top talents. That's where you want to go. That's what you want to be. And that's where I was.
Kurt, I have watched that main event a million times, and the reaction that occurs once you get involved with the finish and Earl Hebner's slow count, it is art. And I cannot wait to hear you talk about this main event. That's next week on The Angle Show. You can check us out on social media as well, of course, at The Angle Pod, and Kurt at Real Kurt Angle, The Kurt Angle Show on YouTube. We're uploading clips every single week to that. So go check that out, The Kurt Angle Show. And I know you got a whole lot to plug, my friend, because you just got off the Jericho cruise not long ago. I'm sure you had a nice little snack by your side for that, didn't you?
I had my chicken snacks, and you know what? A lot of fans had them too. I was really surprised. This is the chicken snacks. We have Snack Smart Crispy Protein Bites, organic protein as well. And you can get these at physicallyfit.com. High protein, low carbohydrate. They taste incredible. We have flavors Kung Pao, buffalo wing and blue cheese, sriracha, cinnamon swirl, honey mustard. We have them all, 11 different flavors. They're incredible. You're going to absolutely love them. Go to physicallyfit.com.
Yeah, Mrs. Angle told me they are all over the Angle household. And I asked if she could send some my way. And she said, no, John, you got to use promo code AnglePod because then you're going to get 20% off your order.
That's my wife. No freebies.
I absolutely love that. These things are great and full of protein. So go check those out. Tons of different flavors as well. And they should also head over to KurtAngleBrand.com because you are just giving the fans an opportunity to get up close in person with their favorite merchandise. And you're also offering a very special deal where if they send you maybe a picture that they took with you years ago or something that they want autographed, you'll even send it right back to them.
Yeah, you send it to me. The address on the website, KurtAngleBrand.com. Look up the address, send it to me. I will personalize it, sign it to you. You send me a prepaid postage envelope and a small donation for charity. I will return that personalized message or autograph to you. Also on my website, I have cowboy hats, birthday cards. I got t-shirts, photographs, milk cartons. I got them all, and it's very affordable. I kept the prices very low because I want to show my appreciation to all the fans.
And no one's going to come to you 5 minutes before you order it and tell you to get the props out. So that's the best part about it. KurtAngleBrand.com. It's a place you can get all that good stuff. Kurt, anything else you want to add to all these fans that asked so many great questions on this episode?
No, I just want to say thank you for listening to the Kurt Angle Show. I really do appreciate it. And I love all you guys and girls out there.
That we do, Kurt. It was an absolute pleasure. I've interviewed Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, but nothing was quite like talking to the Olympic gold medalist himself. It's true. It's true. Absolutely. And we'll see you guys next week on the Kurt Angle Show.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.